proposal exam of Zong Yang. Zong has been in my lab for 4 years now. I think coming up in September will be 4 years since he joined, the fall of 2016. Zong has been working on multiple projects funded by the National Science Foundation, at least 3 projects that I can count, and he's going to talk to you today about control and modeling of microrobots. Primarily, that's what he focused on. I asked Zong to present for about 40 minutes, and after that, we will have some discussion. So, Zong, go ahead and go through your slides.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Zhong Yang, and I'm a PhD candidate working with Dr. Hoba.
Zong, you're on page 4 now.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, a little bit nervous. Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Zhong Yang. I'm a PhD candidate working with Dr. Hoba in Next Generation System Lab. Today, I will present my research, the modeling, simulation, control of a microrobot for the microfactory applications. So here's the outline I will cover today. I will first give some background introduction of a microfactory and the microfactory and the microrobots research area, and then I will show my contributions. And then later we will talk about some detail of my research, conclusion of future work. So in nano or micro manufacturing area, there normally have 2 approach. One is called a top-down approach, the other is a bottom-up approach. So the top-down approach is you have a bulk of material, and through some process, you will get some nano or micron level structure you desired. The bottom-up approach is starting from the atom or molecule level, and through physics process, we'll some maybe from self-assembly will form some larger structural. So for that top-down approach, we can the best example we can see nowadays is from a semiconductor area. We can fabricate sensors, chips through those clean room process. The bottom up we can find normally from some biology process such as the DNA, RNA, enzyme formations. So our research is about a microfactory. This is inspired by the bottom-up approach. So basically, you also starting from some basic particles. It's not from a molecule level, but it still can be a nano-size level, nano-size particles, and then we assemble those things together to get a desired larger structure. So the first time people bring up the concept of microfactories from early 1990s from a Japanese lab, they first involved a concept of the microfactory, desktop microfactory. In this microfactory, you have sorting system, carrying system, and also assembly system. The whole system is automatically controlled by the computer. So in our research lab, 10 years ago, we was designed a concept called a wafer scale nanofactory. So this nanofactory, this microfactory is composed by the different type of swarm of microrobots. Some microrobot is working as a conveyor to bring those micro or nano particle in, and then some other assembler will assemble those those things together to get a larger structure. So we can classify from the microfactory. Those are different type of microrobot. We can give some classification of them. So there majorly have two type of microrobot: locomotive microrobot and the stationary microrobot. So the locomotive microrobot means some robot can move itself. There's also have a sub type. It's called type E and the type R. The type E microrobot is the robot can harvesting the energy from the environment, but it's also large enough to storage the energy and have control units on board. The type R of microrobot normally is smaller, and it can harvesting the energy even more diverse. It's such as vibration energy, chemistry energy, thermal, magnetic, or from light. So this type of robot is the normal space to storage the energy, and the control unit is out of the microrobot. So for the stationary microrobot, there have two subtypes. One is the micro conveyor. This also is will transport those raw material into the assembler, and the other is a micro manipulator. So just will operate and manipulate and assemble those particle together to get the structure we desired. So the micro robot area is pretty diverse. Through our classification, we here is showing some different micro robot was developed by the other research team. On the left hand, you can see those movable micro robots. So those micro robots is this movable micro robot you can see on like a ETH or Waterloo, they are type R of micro robot because they are very small. They leverage by the magnetic and controlled by the magnetic field. And the bottom is you can see the Harvard University. This micro insect is driven by the piezoelectric actuator. So, but this is large enough so you can see it's a control unit and the battery. This is type E of microrobot. And Washington University developed a robotic bee. So this robot is harvesting the energy through the of the laser beam through this solar cell, and then, but it's small. It's no need to storage energy. It can driving these things to fly. For the stationary micro robot, people develop a different type. Some is based on the AFM. So those robot is like a robotic arms. It can make a pitch and yaw motions, and so this can as a nanoparticles manipulators, and also can be used for sensing. So also people, the large size robot, we have a Delta robot. So people also downsize to design a mini Delta robot. So this robot can be as a micro positioner and also can be as a micro manipulator. People can use this for like a surgical usage for like very precise eye surgery. So our research team have designed different type of microrobot. Here is the one we designed. Is called the laser-driven locomotive microrobot. So this type of microrobot is, as we said, is a type R of microrobot. So basically, it's harvesting the energy from laser beam. When the laser beam, these green things are shining on the structure of this microrobot, then it will heat up this microrobot. The heating will generate a thermal expansion. Finally, this robot will have spring and stick and slip motion on the substrate. There have two family we designed. The first family we designed is called the Shabbat family. This is designed by my colleagues Roshi Zhang. So this robot is prove that the concept of laser-driven locomotive microrobot, this idea is work. But this robot only have one actuator, so ideally this robot only can move in one direction. So if we want to make a microrobot can have a controllable behavior, I come up with an idea to design a differential actuator to drive this microrobot to make a turning behavior. We will discuss these things more in detail later. So for stationary microrobot, I was research on the articulate microrobot AFM. So this is a nano manipulator. So this is the old design. So basically, this robot you can see is have two micro stages, and each micro stages is driven by the chevron thermal actuator. When you add electricity, will heat up those beam, and then it will making the motion on X and Y, and through this copper cable, finally is will bring the motion on the tip of this microrobot. So this also can be supplying some pitch and yaw and XY, those motions of this tip in the space. So here's my contributions of a movable microrobot. I have developed a systematic way to modeling this and the analysis this locomotive microrobot, and I designed a new thermal actuators, and also applying these new thermal actuators, I designed new movable microrobot called SerpentBot. So I also simulate the way we can how we control these things. So for stationary microrobot, my contribution normally is focusing on the modeling part. I designed modeling the forward and the inverse kinematic of this microrobot, and develop the simulation environment for this microrobot. And so later we will test this the real microrobot in the SEM environment. Here's also mentioned, we also have a micro conveyor. It's called a solar pit, but it's not covering here. I also modeling these things. Later we will I will conduct the control method for it. Okay, now let's talk about the motivation and the methodology. So the motivation of my research, because this microrobot is involved in very complex physics process, so we need to using physics model to understanding this type of microrobots better, and then we will come up with a better way to modeling those microrobots, and finally we needed to find a way to design a microrobot with a controllable behavior. After that, we can control this robot. So the methodology I'm using first is modeling the system of a microrobot. I have three different tools: analytical lambda model, finite element analysis, and the reduced order model. I also have used the experiment to validate those ideas and the concepts. So basically, there I will try to use the system identification and the visual serving. So let's talk about laser-driven locomotive microrobot first. So here's showing the those microrobot I designed. On this top is called a serpent bot, and this one is a sharp bot. So those microrobot is fabricated in the standard clean room process, DRAE process, and you can see the robot is shining by the laser beam, and this is side view of it, the frame and the frame and the actuator, and there have an angle. Finally, this robot will making the stick and slip motion. You can see this one, the dimple is here, this is the leg, there's a dimple here, this is the leg. So how to modeling this microrobot? So this microrobot is a type of microrobot is involved in the optothermal mechanical process. So here's the side view of the system. Like here's the air, and there's some those silicon is represent part of the structure of the microrobot, and because like I showing on last slide, the robot have a angle, so there's have an air gap between the substrate and the microrobot body. So when we're shining the laser beam on the microrobot, some laser energy will reflect to the space, some will absorbed by the surface of this microrobot. Then through the thermal conduction, the convection, and the radiation, some energy, heat will lost. Finally, the temperature will reach the equilibrium. So here's showing how this different physics things coupled. We can see here's just from like this diagram. Some laser shining and some reflect, and when rest of the energy we're harvesting become to the temperature change, and some energy will lost. Finally, we can knowing how the temperature changing on the microrobot structure, and combine with then we knowing the temperature, we will knowing the structure's thermal deformation. Combines Newton's law and our friction model, we will finally know how this robot motion in the space. So here's the detail of my model. So first we have through the conservation law, we have the first order differential equation to describe the temperature changing by the time of the structure of a microrobot. So basically the first term is a laser heat generation term. Some energy will reflect to space. Also here I'm only consider the thermal conduction because the radiation and the convection is pretty small. So I just only pick the dominant part. And finally we're knowing how the temperature changing by the time. So for mechanical part, we knowing the temperature, we also can knowing the deformation force on the structure. So for the mechanical part, we are using the spring and the damper model. So you can see from this diagram, the feet is what I'm showing on the real picture and the frame. In between is those actuators. So those actuators is we can abstract as a spring and the dampers. So because this is in 1D scenario, like just a set view of this microrobot of the shopbot. So there basically have a 2 degree of freedom of this whole system. That's why in our spring damper model we have a 2 nonlinear differential equations. We can extending this 1D model to be 2D but even more complex. We need another equation to know how this robot make turns. Because this robot is only have one actuator here, so it's driven here. The frame, these 2 legs will have a friction force imbalance. We are generating the torque, so that's why this robot can make a turn. But because this friction force imbalance, so this robot ideally can moving just forward, but in real scenario, it will generate a zigzag trajectory. So we have simulate those dynamic equations through the Simulink. So the 1D dynamic simulations, we simulate the average velocity of the mass center of the shotbot. So basically, it can moving in the constant speed, but the leg or the frame is have a periodical motions, and the force on the actuators is basically is a action force of the friction force. So you can see in this part, the friction force is static friction. When it's reach some levels, it's become to dynamic frictions. I also simulate in the 2D dynamic scenario. So as I mentioned, the shellbots, the frame have these two legs have a different friction force. So if we changing the friction constants, then we can simulate how this robot moving, make a turn. So here we just make a different the friction constants. But if we randomize this friction function, friction constants, because this robot is the legs touching down on the surface of the substrate. So each location, the friction constants we assume have some difference. If we randomize those friction constants, then we can find that those robots have some zigzag random walk in the space. So we also the different modeling method can only give you part of the idea, the knowledge of the laser-driven locomotive microrobot. So the lambda model tells us some story. The FEA, the finite element analysis, can tell us another story, another part of the story. So we are interested in how those actuator moving in with a certain boundary conditions, and how the performance of those actuators. So here's we're using the FEA. But the FEA is hard to simulate the optothermal part. We have to making some simplification and assumption. So our starting point is through the Beer's law. The Beer's law we can calculate is basically describing when the laser shining on a material, how deep is effective to how deep of this effective area. So through Beer's law, we can calculate the effective zone of the surface of the microrobot structure is normally like 3 micron. So we set this part as a heat source. We put into our simulation as a part of the boundary conditions. And also the other boundary condition, there have two scenarios, tethered and untethered. The tethered is we fabricate our microrobot and release it, but we not assemble the depot on it, so it's still tethering with on the die. If we untether it and assemble the depot on it, then you can see they will have a tilted area. This part is represents the air between the robot and the substrate. This is just a approximation. So when we set those boundary conditions, we can give how the heat distribute on this micro robot structure. So after we knowing the heat, so the FEA also can give us how this actuator shutter moving, the displacement. So when after those simulation, I collect some data about the temperature and the displacement on those microstructure. So you can see when we're shining like laser beam on the microrobot, is the temperature will increase, finally will reach equilibrium. Same as the displacement on the actuator will reach the equilibrium. So this behavior looks like first order system. Actually, from my analytical model, we have analyzed this robot have one first order differential equations and plugged into a second order differential equation. So finally, this robot can be considered as a third order system. But if we behave like a first order system, so basically the Shabbat is only dominant by the thermal behavior. So from those data, I did a system identification just using first order system function to identify them. Because there have a lot of uncertainty for those boundary conditions, so the value of those of the amplitude we can ignore, because we cannot measure in the boundary conditions temperature exactly how heat transfer, the power of heat transfer, and so it's too much uncertainty. But this can give us the most important idea is the time constant of this of those actuator. That can give us like to know how this actuator performance. So we did a lot of theoretical analysis. Now we need to move on to doing some experiment to verify, to examine those series. So we have two different setup of experiment. So here is showing is our experiment is how we're shining laser on the microrobot. So here's our laser generator through those filter and shutters and alignment the laser beam and reflected this mirror. Then we are shining on the arena. The arena is a substrate and the microrobot is located on it. And when they're shining this laser beam, it will heat up the structure, it will making the motion of the microrobot. So you need to XY stage combine with the camera to recentering this microrobot under the laser beam. So the other experiment we set up is we want to measuring the actuator itself, to collecting the displacement. So here is we are showing is this picture is showing the array of microrobots on the die. So we put some microrobots on the edge of this die, and then we're shining the laser beam on the structure, and finally through the key sensor to measuring the displacement. The key sensor is a laser displacement sensor. It's a calculated time of the reflections to knowing how much distance is make the motion of some structures. So we have did also we have did those experiments. Here is showing you we're collecting data from key sensors when we're shining the laser on the Shabbat, how this displacement will looks like. So you can see this is similar with our FEA simulations, and our analysis is looks like a first order system. So we have did a system identification. Ignore this amplitude part. You can see the time constant is a similar level with what we simulated. We also through the those visual servering system, we collecting the trajectory of this Shabbat. You can see there are random walk on the substrate. So it's similar to with our analytical model simulated through the Simulink. Yeah, so basically also the velocity is also in the similar level. There have a lot of parameters of those models, so basically we cannot make things exactly same, but we definitely can knowing through those trend and tuning those parameters, we can make we can understand how this robot behave and make it understand better. So from the SharpBot, I found this is a proved laser-driven locomotive microrobot. This idea can work, but as we analyze, the SharpBot is is hard to bring the controllable behavior because it's only have one actuator, is only can supply 1 degree of freedom. So if we want to make a microrobot with controllable behavior, I was designed a new type of microrobot called a SerpentBot. Here is a different SerpentBot I was designed. So basically, it's based on the same structure, or we can say similar structure. It's called I call it elbow thermal actuator. This I invented. I will talk about these things in detail. So why is called an elbow thermal actuator? So basically, you can see here's this microrobot have 2 actuators, but the difference is those spring is this one is larger than the other one. So those spring have different spring constants. When this is when we heat up this structure, this part of will generate the motion on the structure. Finally, it will through this pivot spring and this cantilever structure will amplify the motion on the spring to on the leg. Finally, the robot is so because this robot have 2 different spring constants, then it will have 2 different intrinsic frequencies on those structures. So, like I was discussed for the SharpBot, this microrobot also can be similar way to model. You have first order differential equations about the temperature, and also spring damper model. In here also plus the cantilever amplifications. You have a second order differential equation to describe how this legs are moving. So this sort of system is in total is a 3rd order differential equation, 3rd order system. So in our SharpBot, we can see the pole of the thermal pole is dominant. So which means the thermal pole is in front of those mechanical pole. That's why this the SharpBot is performed like a 1st order system. So if we want the microrobot have a controllable behavior, we want the mechanical pole in front of the thermal pole. So this robot is more working like a 2nd order system. So no matter 2nd order is more like so the mechanical pole in front of thermal pole does make the system function will have some peaks. So if we have 2 actuators, then we have 2 system functions. They have 2 peaks, and they also have overlap part. So if we tuning our we modulate our laser pulse frequency close to the F1 actuator's intrinsic frequency, then this will generate a larger motion on that actuator than the other one. So basically, our laser pulse frequency is like a driving force in the just like a swing. If you using the same frequency to pushing a swing, you're pushing force frequency is similar with the swing intrinsic frequency, then you will reach the maximum displacement. So here is the same ideas. If we have a two system function with a different frequency, we can use this concept to controlling the microrobot with a forward moving in F2 and some turning behavior in F1 or F3. So here is I'm showing I did some vibration simulations through the FEA. You can see here is how this microrobot actual moving. This you can see those spring if it have some vibrations or displacement finally it will reflect to on the leg. So this vibration analysis can show us is this actuator have two peaks. So it's similar with our analytical design, with our analytical analysis. The problem is a little bit different is those values calculate different with our analytical model. It's because the boundary conditions have some difference and also have some uncertainty. Here's showing an example how this micro robot moving. So in this micro robot, let me make a maybe accelerate. Yeah, so basically this micro robot, you can see if we're accelerating it, before that's a real time, if you can see this robot can be turning. So each time when it's make a turn, that's controlled by the laser pulse frequency, laser pulse frequency change. So we collect the trajectory of the design of 28 and 29. By the way, I have designed a lot of different micro robots with a different legs design and frame design. Why I conduct a lot of different design? Because our micro robot is too tiny. So the little bit changing of a spring constant or the weight of leg or the weight of frame, the user bring significant frequency change. Here's we currently found the two best working micro robots, 28 and 29. You can the video I'm showing is 29. You can see this trajectory we collect. You can if we want to moving straight, the frequency is 1100 hertz. If we make a right turn, then it's 2000 hertz, and if we make a left turn, it's 700 hertz. The values is different with what we simulate, but the frequency is showing us is same have those two different system functions with overlap. Okay, let's move on to another micro robot. Is AFM. So just like I mentioned, this micro manipulator have two stages, and through those micro stage, you're driving finally through this copper cable. Then it will make a final motion on those robotic arm. So to modeling these things, this robot is pretty complex. Our goal is to bring a model can be used for simulation and for control. You have a lot of way, like we discussed for the locomotive micro robot. We have we can using the FEA simulations. We can give some lumped dynamic models. We also can using like a sugar to give some reduced order models. But those model is have a very the computational complexity is huge. We cannot use for real-time control. So we need a better way to modeling this micro robot. So from so here I just start from to modeling the forward kinematic and the inverse kinematic of this micro robot. So how to do that? The forward and the inverse kinematic we can abstract as an optimization problem with a constraint. So imagine you have a physics system. From physics, we can know that each of time, the system always stay on the minimum energy status. So basically, we can modeling this micro robot with the goal function as the energy function. The constraint is from the geometry relation, geometry constraint. We combine together, we can using Lagrange multiplier to get the model of the this micro robot. So those equations given the is a forward kinematic or inverse kinematic. Basic is given the relation of when we're moving the micro stage of AFM, how much we are moving on the final the tip of the AFM. So this will combine those things together will give us a set of nonlinear equations. So to solve those equations is not an easy task by hand. So we have developed a solver through the C++. The core algorithm we was used is Newton-Raphson algorithm. So this can solve the nonlinear equations. The solution, just like I'm saying, is a relation between how much moving on those stages. Finally, how much through those equations we can calculate how much motion on the tips. So after we have this nonlinear solver, we can develop the linear planner. The linear planner is we want to plan the trajectory on the tip. For example, if we want to making this moving the zigzag trajectory, then here's this the other two is showing how the trajectory, which means the motion of those micro stages of the AFM. So here is the animation I'm showing is from the software I developed in the ROS Gazebo environment with those numerical solvers. You can see how those micro stages moving and finally how this tip moving. But this is much larger than actual moving. Normally the micro robots, those micro stage cannot give that large motions. It's normally it's a 50 micron, 100 micron, something like that. Here is just easier to show you how this concept. So based on the simulation environment, we can study the characteristic of this micro robot. We can knowing the working space of it. So the working space you can see is through the multicolor simulations. We can we got some point cloud of the tips. So the approximate working space is 50 micron by 50 by 800 micron. This is another is a side view from other plane to see what this manifold looks like. So we also use multicolor simulations to study the repeatabilities and uncertainty. We can through those things to know how precise our micro robot, and also if we have an environment noise, or no matter mechanical vibration noise or electrical vibration noise, how robust of this micro robot. So, okay, here's some conclusion of my research. For the laser-driven locomotive micro robot, I have given some systematic way to modeling the multi-physics behind this type of micro robot. That's involve the FEA, lambda models, and experiments. And we found that this microrobot is have a stick and slip motions. And so we also apply this knowledge to design a new type of thermal actuator in the new microrobots called a serpent bot. For AFM, I have I have modeling the system of AFM, the inverse and the kinematic and forward kinematic and inverse kinematic, and also develop those things in the ROS gazebo environment with a C++. And through this simulation environment, we have studied the performance of this microrobot. So for future work, now I'm currently working on the control system for the microrobot. So basically, this the control system of this of the serpent bot is have a similar setup with our current experiment setup. You need a camera to doing the stages to doing the visual feedback, visual serving. So basically, for this microrobot, is supposed to have a two control loop. The inner loop is the controller for those stages, and the outside loop is the inner loop is for the stages to recentering the microrobot. The outside control loop is controlling the laser beam to make it let the robot following some desired trajectory. So we will implement this this system fully automatic. So we are also trying to use the automatic identification of the image Jacobian method. That's what I'm working on. So here's the real setup we have for the serpent bot. You can see those camera system, and this is only part of it. And the stages we are using the PI linear stage, piezoelectric linear stage. That is much faster and precision and smaller than our setup before. And the rotational stages is from Zebra company. So for the AFM, we have the future work. We will doing several tasks. 若是 have designed in our lab have designed a new structure for this FM. It's called SAFM. So instead of using this copper cable to link between different actuators, he was designed a spring system to link between these two micro stages. So I can use a similar way to modeling this system, and also I can simulate the environment I was developed. Finally, we can just design the control system for it and verify in the SEM environment. Okay, thank you. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Zong. So at this point, I'd like to invite anyone with questions to address your questions for Zong. Anybody in the audience?
I have a question, John. On your page 30, you're showing a video.
Yeah.
And I can see the entire actuator is moving towards one direction, right? Like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when your actuator is moving like this, in one direction, does it captures the motion on the other direction? Because I can see that your actuators on the side is also connected, See what I'm saying? When you are moving your entire actuator towards the front, forward direction,
yeah,
you have two actuators on the sides.
Yeah.
That they are also connected to the moving part of the actuator. But I don't see how they're.
So basically, here's some simplification from my model. So there's you can see this Microrobot. This micro stages is the XY motion is not decoupled. When you pushing this part, it will have some motion on this part. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So basically, this micro stage design is cannot bring a pure X and a Y motion. But in my model, to simplify, I just assume they can have a pure X and Y motions. That's the assumption I made. Because of the motion of this chevron thermal actuator is pretty small, so I think that's a good approximation to just assume they have nodes coupling. I have a side project to design a pure X and Y motion of micro stages and fabricate it, but I'm not showing here. And that's a possible can applying for the chevron for the SFM or other applications. So that's is no any coupling problem. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure. On page 24, you're showing the motion of a laser-driven microrobot. I don't see the laser spot.
So basically, you can see from the system setup. Here is some when we're shutting the laser beam on here. Here the camera system there have some filter to filter out those are green light. So basically, when you're recording the video, you cannot see the laser beam.
Oh, okay. That's all my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions?
Yes, this is Sri. So I have a follow-up question from Roshi. So Zong, what is the need for this filter? Why do you need to filter out the laser spots from the video at all?
This I really don't know. I'm not an expert for the optical system. This setup is Andrew and Sri helped me, so I don't remember honestly to knowing the filter's name.
No, okay. He's asking what's the reason to use it.
Oh, what's the reason to use the filter?
Yes.
So basically we have two sets of filter. In laser beam, these filters is for like sometimes we need a realignment those microrobot. We don't want a very strong laser beam. So those filters is just make the laser beam less brightness. And the other filter is located on those camera system. So just like I mentioned, that's a filter is when we recording the video or doing the visual serving, we don't want those interference. We can filter out those green light of the laser beam. Is that answer your question?
Not perfectly, but that's fine. So we use that filter. I'm just answering in case. Yeah. We use that filter because we track the robot, right? And when we track the robot, we initially define the area of the robot on that video. So if there is a laser spot interfering with that area of the robot, then the tracking would be cumbersome, right? So we don't want that laser spot at all while we are tracking the robot.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question on your, I guess on your future work, slide 36. You're talking about your.
So Mike, let's since you're in the committee, let's ask if anyone else from the audience is has any questions at this point, and if not, we're gonna let you all go. Thank you all for participating today, and we'll move on to a closed session with the committee.
Okay, sorry about that, Dan.
That's okay. All right, thank you.